Hello and welcome to the first of videos for the Raedwald Trust about performance management and the professional development process. This is the first video, which is entitled Professional Development RAG Review and Target Setting. The Raedwald Trust has three core values, which is higher expectations, higher aspiration and higher achievement. It wants the very best for its pupils and the very best for its community. And we're all part of that Raedwald Trust, and our commitment to the children and young people of Raedwald Trust starts by us taking responsibility for ourselves. If you remember back in our PD day in April, I talked about the importance that if we want to inspire our young people, if we want to kind of breathe life into them, we need to inspire, to breathe in ourselves before we can breathe in to others. If you think about it, it's a bit like if you've ever seen or had to perform first aid resuscitation. In order to breathe life into the patient, you have to come up away, breathe in clean air to then breathe back into the patient so that you can give them the very best. And it's the same for us. We need to take responsibility to develop ourselves before we can then develop the young people in our care. So Angela, the CEO of the Trust, has worked with a team from the Raedwald Teaching School to develop a system of performance management that's based on your professional development, where you, as a member of the Raedwald Trust staff, take responsibility for your own professional development and drive it yourself. So the system is that at the start of the academic year, each staff member will review themselves against kind of national standards for their particular role. There will be a RAG rating system, a simple red, amber, green, but like a traffic light system. And you will then review yourself, and then you'll send a copy of that review to a reviewer that's been assigned to you, and they will then meet with you and go through that. Now on your staff hub, you will find details of the review. There'll be a list of modules, and amongst that will be one that says RAG rating. Open up that RAG rating, complete it, and then once you've completed it, send it off to your reviewer. So with this new performance management process, there will continue to be a review at the end of the year for those who are eligible for a pay review based on their position on their pay scale. And what will happen is the reviewer will go through with you and see how you've done with your professional development targets that you've set based on areas of the RAG review you want to improve, but also we'll look at how you meet the national standards for your role, which of course are all listed within that RAG review. And they'll pass that recommendation on to your particular pay review body. And there'll be more details of this in a further video. Now, you can see the process explained in this particular chart, which has been drawn up by Angela, which can also be found on the portal. There'll be a self-review and targets made in September. The Raedwald Teaching School will then moderate those targets just to check there's a consistency across and everybody's being treated the same. In February, there'll be a midpoint review, and then there'll be an endpoint review in July. And then the following September, there will be a pay review for those who are eligible based on their position on their pay scale. So let's have a look at the process that you and your reviewer will follow. Before you meet, you will go through the RAG review yourself. And as we've said, this can be found on the Raedwald Trust portal. When you've found your role's RAG, go through the statement and grade yourself. Red means that you're not currently meeting that or performing in that particular statement. You've little knowledge in this area or experience of it or ability to kind of understand the theory and put that into practice. Amber means you've got some experience of this. You do have an understanding, but perhaps you've not had consistent opportunity to perform in this area, or you've not got the position where you naturally understand this, where it's just automatic for you. And then green means you understand, you've got a really good knowledge and you've applied this in practice. Once you've completed this RAG, then send it through to your reviewer so they can go through it and prepare it for your meeting. So an example of one you can see on screen now. This is one just taken from the head teacher RAG review, and you can see this sample person, it's none of your current head teachers, has gone through and has scored themselves and made just some notes of evidence, both in case of what they feel they've done, but also the impact of that as well. So when you're completing your RAG review, it's kind of asking yourself some honest, simple questions. The importance of this RAG review is that it is really honest. If you overcook yourself, then you won't identify areas you need to improve on, so there'll just remain gaps in your foundation that just aren't strong enough for you to continue to breathe in well to inspire and equip your young people. So it's best to be honest. What's your gut feel? Am I strong on this? Am I green? Am I okay on this? But don't feel particularly confident, or don't feel I've got a deep knowledge base to help me help the young people. Or do I just really feel on a weak footing? If somebody really asked me questions on this, I would struggle to really explain the theory that sits behind it and how I've modelled this in practice. So honesty is the best policy because it helps you create a really clear picture for yourself and helps the reviewer to see the areas that they can maybe help you identify to improve on. So then it comes to the meeting with your reviewer. What will happen is you've sent it through to them beforehand, so they'll have a chance to look through, and they will then ask you some questions about the colours that you've chosen. This will be to ensure that the review is accurate, not because they want to catch you out, but they just want to check that your green is green, and in fact, if your red is red. Have you been too hard on yourself, for example? It'll help create a clear picture. So if you have a look at the RAG here, the reviewer, for example, might ask you some questions on this particular one, maybe about your open classrooms. So if you look in your open classroom sections here, which was part C, you said very few staff were willing to be involved, you scored yourself red. Are you really red? Is there more practice going on that you think? They might ask you about who is involved then, what has happened so far, just to ascertain that. Or they may look at one of the areas you've identified as green. So on this particular one, the really strong curriculum is listed as one. So they might ask you, well, okay, what's your knowledge of the curriculum? How have you brought that into play? How do you know the curriculum is good? Have you had any kind of review with the staff or the children, how the curriculum is performing? What impact has the curriculum had then? And that will just test whether it's green. So they'll ask you those few questions. And once you've reviewed that with the RAG, with the reviewer, what they may then do is they'll help you to find the areas that you have identified you want to work on. You may have already discovered that and you may chat to them about it. But as part of that process, what they might do is review back, pan back over all the statements, put them in front of you and see which areas you can identify maybe has more red or yellow to focus on. So if we look at this particular example that you'll see on screen now, if we pan back, we can see it's section 2 on pupils and staff has more red and yellow than perhaps the other sections. What they might do is look at each section and then say, which of these areas will have the greatest impact not just on that one section, but on sections across as well. And so in this particular example here, the focus might zoom in on pupils and staff, and then might look at the red and yellow areas there and say, which ones would you like to focus on? Now, for setting targets, we recommend no more than 2. You can then really concentrate your energy on that particular area. So your targets might involve a range of things that you will do to help you improve. If we look at this example again, actually the person probably would home in on the fact of 2 key areas. The one that jumps out the most is around an open classroom, because that's the one that's red, the one that's seen as the greatest weakness. And when they look in at open classroom, they might also look at areas like maybe standards and staff accountability to hold to those standards. Because as you went through the particular areas, those might be the 2 that jump out the most for that particular person. So what you then might do is set some targets. Now, if you have a look at this example here, what we have are 2 target areas. The targets, you'll notice, are predominantly based around the standards. And so the first target is about developing the culture of the open classroom, a way of sharing good practice. And you'll then see that in the impact, what we've done is list perhaps impact and activities that you're looking for. And if you have a look and you see this particular target has identified the impact they're looking to see, which will be about developing their own confidence, but also about staff feeling confident to have open classrooms. And here is listed some kind of things that they'd like to achieve in those particular terms. And you'll see there's a gradual improvement and involvement. The idea is that the activities that you then get involved in to improve your knowledge and your understanding and skills in this particular area. So you'll see there's some reading the person wants to do. The modules that we'll talk about in video 2 will be a really good starting place for you developing your knowledge and your skills in that area. You'll also see there's some activities that they might well choose to do, some things they'll put in place which will develop the skills that are needed, and then ultimately the behaviours that will come as follows as part of that as well. You'll see the second target follows a similar model. That particular target again looks around how this person might develop staff accountability for raising standards, and again the actual target is very close to the standards themselves, and there are then some key impacts that the person is looking to have in place by particular terms, and again some particular activities they'll do, which again involves reading and maybe activities they'll do to deepen both their knowledge and their understanding and then put those skills into practice. We recommend that you write those particular targets at the bottom of your RAG rating, because what we would then like you to do is save a copy of that RAG rating on your part of the portal so that you have it and you can keep referring to it, that you send a copy to your reviewer so that they can meet with you in the midpoint review and they have a copy of those targets, and also can you send a copy to Laura Leader, because Laura will gather those together and make sure that the moderators who look at the targets across all of the Raedwald Trust have a selection to review. They'll take some samples just to check there is consistency and that some targets are not harder on some people than on others. So in our following video, we will look at how you can use the professional development modules to extend yourself. And in the third video, we'll look at the actual targeting process and any pay review that will happen at the end of the year.